attacking a breath test, it relies on gathering all the evidence you can and determining whether all the proper procedures were filed. In a lot of instances, I have clients who call me and say, hey, listen, I took a breath test. It was scientific, and it shows that I'm over the limit. What can we do? And there are a lot of things that we could do, and I'll outline a few of them now. The first thing that you need to be aware of is what we call the exclusionary rule when it comes to criminal defense work. And what that means is, if evidence was obtained in violation of your rights, the remedy is that it gets excluded from the court case. So there may be a breath test out there, and the breath test may show you were over the limit, but if the officers violated your rights, it can't be used against you in court. So what we do when we're attacking a DUI charge is we try to find all the various ways that the officers may have violated your rights, or the reasons why the breath test might be excluded or unreliable. If we're successful, then the prosecution is left with trying to try a case without a breath test, or in some cases without any evidence at all. So we'll talk about just a few areas where you might be able to suppress evidence and therefore win a DUI case. So one of the areas that you can challenge a breath test is with the way the machine was calibrated. In Idaho, those machines have to be calibrated according to some procedures that are set forth by the Idaho State Police. And this applies to the breath test machines that you'll find in the jail, the Intoxilyzer 5000 machines. It applies to the portable breath tests that are, kind of in the officers' cars. So the first area, and this is an area that often gives my clients a lot of hope, because they look at the stop and they say, well, I was speeding and then they got me for a DUI, there's just no hope. Well, you're not going to be aware of the calibration records or how well that machine was maintained. So in those calibration records, you may find reasons why the test cannot be used. And so what we'll do is we'll subpoena those calibration records, we'll go through those and make sure that for the 60 days preceding your test and the 30 days after, that the machine was calibrated correctly, that the officers did their job. And if they didn't do their job, then we'll file the motion to exclude the breath test from evidence. So just to give an example, if it's a portable breath test in the state of Idaho, they have to run a sample test. And the way they do a sample test is they have a solution. And the solution is monitored to be at exactly 0.08. And they take that solution and they run it through the machine to test how the machine will test that particular fluid. And they record the results. Now, if the results are more than 10% apart, so let's say the machine was supposed to rate it at a 0.08 and it rates it at a 0.09. Well, the machine's not functioning properly, and any breath test that came as around that time can be excluded from evidence. Another aspect that forms a good basis for suppressing evidence is with what we call mouth alcohol, and I'll explain that in a moment. But the officer should observe you for 15 minutes prior to giving you the breath test. And that observation period cannot be while they're driving, it can't be while they're giving you the field sobriety test. It needs to be kind of a more fixated observation period. The officer should advise you that you shouldn't belch, burp, or vomit. The officer should look inside your mouth to see if you have like chewing tobacco or gum or dentures or like denture adhesive pads or anything that's not natural to your mouth. They should ask you about and try to remove. The reason why that's important is that the machine that you're going to blow into is going to test the alcohol content of your breath. And let's say you have chewing gum in your mouth. When the air passes by that chewing gum, it's going to kind of extract the alcohol from that as it blows by, and it's going to blow an abnormally high result. Not what your real BAC levels are, something influenced by this. So the 15-minute wait period is a scientific requirement. And what that means is, let's say you had just drank a glass of alcohol. In 15 minutes, the science says that that alcohol will have evaporated from your mouth cavity, from your throat, and from kind of the stomach linings, which means that you should go back to kind of a zero reading. And then when your breath test comes out, it should be an accurate breath test. So one way we often can defeat a DUI case is by showing that the officer either didn't perform the 15-minute wait period properly or just didn't observe it. He just waited 7 minutes, or he waited 12 minutes, or sometimes 15 minutes and 55 seconds, or 14 minutes and 55 seconds. So those are all good bases to win both the ALS hearing with the Department of Transportation as well as the court hearing in front of the magistrate judge. So those are really great opportunities to also suppress evidence. If the particular officer didn't observe the 15-minute wait period, well then they can't use the breath test as evidence in court.